At 1:30 a.m., the war in Ukraine took a dramatic turn. NATO faced its most direct confrontation with Russia. A large-scale Russian air assault began that night. The assault aimed to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. Russian aviation, naval assets, and launchers struck. The strikes targeted infrastructure deep in Ukraine. Over 400 UAVs were part of the massive barrage. More than 40 cruise and ballistic missiles were launched. Sea-launched Caliber and mobile variants were included. The objective was to saturate Ukraine's air defenses. The goal was to degrade the air defense network. Russia aimed to create corridors for subsequent strikes. The assault pressured supply lines from NATO territory. At 2:17 a.m., the situation became critically complex. Ukrainian batteries were heavily engaged in defense. Polish radar detected unidentified aerial objects. Objects deviated from paths over Ukraine, crossing into Poland. A minor error quickly became a sustained incursion. Polish and NATO systems tracked 19 separate violations. The violations were assessed to be Russian attack drones. The response was immediate following NATO protocols. NATO executed protocols for an air sovereignty breach. The Polish military was placed on high alert. Fighter aircraft were scrambled in response. NATO detected unidentified objects straying from Ukraine entering Polish airspace. Initial minor errors soon revealed a sustained, widespread incursion. Fighter aircraft were scrambled to intercept the hostile assets. Polish Air Force F-16 seconds roared into the night sky. Their mission to intercept and neutralize the hostile assets. Royal Netherlands Air Force F-35 seconds joined the mission, operating from Poland as part of NATO's air policing mission. This multinational force was vectored to engage the intruders. Allied fighters intercepted and destroyed Russian UAVs. Official reports confirmed at least 3 drones shot down. Ground search teams located wreckage of 7 drones in eastern Poland. Drone debris was found in Verki and Chosnovka. Residential property sustained damage in these villages. Fortunately, there were no reported casualties. As the military operation concluded, consequences began to mount. Polish aviation authorities ordered a temporary airspace closure. The airspace over Warsaw Chopin Airport was temporarily closed. This action cited unplanned military activity. The closure was in coordination with the Polish military. FAA advisories mirrored the gravity of the national situation. This underscored the gravity of the national situation. Following the drone incident, ground search teams located wreckage in eastern Poland. The debris was found in villages like Verki and Chosnovka with some property damage. Authorities reported no casualties from the drone impacts. As the military operation concluded, civilian and political consequences mounted. Polish aviation authorities closed Warsaw Chopin Airport due to military activity. The airport closure was a temporary but total measure. FAA advisories mirrored the gravity of the national security threat. The focus shifted to the halls of power in Warsaw and Brussels. Prime Minister Tusk addressed an emergency session of the Polish parliament. Tusk warned that the situation was the closest to open conflict since World War II. He stated the events went beyond mere provocations in Polish skies. Poland formally invoked Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty. Article 4 calls for urgent consultations among all 32 member states. This action doesn't trigger military response like Article 5, but urgent discussion. It is invoked when the security of any member is threatened. Prime Minister Tusk was in constant communication with NATO Secretary General. The alliance's response was swift, unified, and unequivocal. NATO condemned the reckless violation of Allied airspace. Integrated NATO air defenses played a role in countering the drones. Secretary General delivered a direct message to the Kremlin. "Stop violating Allied airspace," the Secretary General warned. "We stand ready, we are vigilant," the message to the Kremlin continued. The alliance is prepared to defend its members against any threat. NATO's unified response underscores its commitment to collective security. The incident highlights the ongoing tensions in the region. The world watches as diplomacy and defense strategies unfold. NATO's Article 4 calls for urgent consultations among all 32 states. This is triggered when security or territory of a member is threatened. Prime Minister Tusk was in constant contact with NATO's Secretary General. NATO's response was swift, unified, and unequivocal against the drone. NATO condemned the reckless violation of Allied airspace in Brussels. "Stop violating Allied airspace," the Secretary General stated firmly. "We stand ready, vigilant, and will defend every inch of NATO territory." This sentiment was echoed across European capitals after the incident. Ursula von der Leyen called the drone incursions unprecedented. President Macron labeled the drone incursions as simply unacceptable. The German government assessed the flight paths as a deliberate action. It was assessed as not an accident but a calculated move. Ukraine framed it as a Russian probe of NATO's defenses and will. Zelensky stated intelligence tracked drones moving toward Poland. This was not an accident or a mistake, Zelensky asserted. He stated it was a calculated Russian activity from the outset. Ukrainian foreign minister warned of further Russian aggression. He warned that any perceived weakness would invite such aggression. The Russian Ministry of Defense issued a complete denial of involvement. They insisted strikes targeted only military and energy targets in Ukraine. They claimed no intention to engage any targets on Polish territory. Moscow claimed drones had a maximum range of less than 700 kilometers. This detail was presented as proof the Polish accusations were a myth. Following the incident, Ukraine warned of further Russian aggression. They stated any Western weakness would invite more action. Moscow insisted no targets were engaged on Polish territory. The Russian statement called the accusations a baseless myth. Analysts see this as a high-risk incident tied to regional posturing. It occurred before joint military exercises with Belarus. Exercises took place near the Polish and Lithuanian borders. These exercises are named Union Shield 2025. They include drills simulating tactical nuclear weapon use. Also deployment of Russia's new Oreshnik hypersonic missile. A primary objective is seizing the Suwalki Gap. The gap separates Kaliningrad from Belarus. It's the only land bridge connecting the Baltic states to NATO. This makes the Suwalki Gap strategically vital. Warsaw responded by closing its border with Belarus. Closure included all rail lines between the two countries. Poland cited national security concerns for the border closure. The closure aimed to address heightened threats in the region. This action reflects growing unease over Russian activity. The situation remains tense as both sides maintain their positions.